Welcome to the Attention Deficit Disorder Expert Podcast Series by Attitude Magazine.
Hey everyone, good afternoon. I'm Susan Kaufman. I'm here for the third of Attitude's three-part ADHD Awareness Month webinar series. We are so pleased to welcome Dr. Michele Novotni today with a really terrific topic to wrap up the month. Dr. Novotni has been helping parents and adults succeed with ADHD for over 30 years, and today she's going to share something pretty amazing, her very best time-tested strategies from all these years of working with ADHD adults and children, strategies, tricks, and life hacks to improve your day-to-day life with ADHD, the things that really matter on a daily basis. So ideas for how to be on time, how to stay on task, how to build solid relationships, how to get out the door without feeling exhausted. We're really pleased to have Dr. Novotni, who is an internationally recognized expert and thought leader in the field of ADHD. She is the former president and CEO of the National Attention Deficit Disorder Association, ADA, a best-selling author, psychologist, coach, and the parent of a young adult with ADHD. She's the author of Adult ADHD, What Does Everybody Else Know That I Don't? And the Novotni Social Skills Checklist. She's been a regular columnist and a webinar speaker for Attitude and serves on our scientific advisory board. And she's someone who we rely on for the best information on attention deficit disorder. Interestingly, she spearheaded the creation of the very first National ADHD Awareness Month, originally a day, now an international event that's held for the full month of October. She has also served on the professional advisory boards for both ADA, Attention Deficit Disorder Association, and for the ADHD Coaches Organization, ACO. So we're thrilled to have you today, Dr. Novotni. Thank you so much for your time. I know how busy you are. I would also like to extend my sincere thanks to the sponsor of our webinar today, Play Attention. Play Attention is the leading neurocognitive training program. It's designed to strengthen executive function and self-regulation and to help you empower yourself or your child in school, in work, and in life. So get started now with a free consultation. Go to www.playattention.com or call 800-788-6786. So that is Play Attention offering a free consultation to Attitude webinar listeners. Thank you, Play Attention. Just a few comments so we can get started. Dr. Novotni will give her presentation and then she'll take your questions. You please post your questions in the Ask a Question section of the screen. Her slides are available for download right now in the event resources section of the screen. Some people like to take notes, print them out. Here's something, next thing is important. When the webinar ends, a post-event survey will pop up. It'll list 3 questions about the quality of the webinar. We hope you'll all take that survey. It will be followed, however, by 3 questions entitled Required for Attendance Certificate. If you would like a certificate of attendance emailed to you, submit answers to those 3 questions. If you don't want a certificate, don't answer them, just move on. So finally, I'd like to point out that some people have audio problems. They are almost exclusively due to a slow internet connection. So we strongly advise you to close any open browser tabs and maximize your internet access. Be on a wired access if at all possible. So with that, let me turn it over to Michele Novotni, and we will be back in touch when she finishes her presentation.
All right. Well, thank you for having me on. Again, I really appreciate all the great work Attitude Magazine does to help individuals with ADHD. So I'm happy to be part of this event again. So over the years, I've worked with a number of people. And over again, a couple things keep on popping up that seem to be really beneficial for them. So today what I'd like to do is share with you some of the best that I've offered people that they've tended to find to be helpful. So first I want to start with the idea of a mindset that managing ADHD isn't a quick fix. If you or your child has ADHD, it's unlikely it's going to be gone tomorrow. So I have a son that's a runner, and they train differently for a marathon than for sprints. So a marathon, you have to sort of conserve your energy. You have to sort of pick your battles. You have to pace yourself. And you also have to realize that this is a long haul. I know when I was raising Jared with the ADHD, I kept on thinking it'd be better tomorrow. I don't know, I guess I'm just an optimist. But if I would have known how long this would have gone on, I would have developed some different resources and some different strategies. So the first thing to be mindful of is that you don't just need a plan for today or tomorrow or next week, although those are important. You're also going to need those for the long haul. So that's the first one, is to get your mindset wrapped around this correctly. The second thing that I come up with an awful lot is that many individuals with ADHD want things to be all better right away. And so it's going to be really important to acknowledge progress along the way, not perfection. Because again, individuals with ADHD, as well as regular folks without ADHD, are going to miss the mark at times. But as long as they're making progress towards goals, that's going to be really important for helping them. I know I wrote an article for Attitude a long time ago when my son Jared was going to a wedding party, and he got on the airplane and he made the connections and he did everything except when we went to get dressed, he didn't bring his dress pants. So he had his dress socks, his dress shoes, his dress belt, everything but the pants. And so he ended up going to the event in torn jeans. And unfortunately, he wasn't a size that was easy to buy something for right away because he worked out all the time and had thighs that were huge. So anyhow, everybody was really frustrated with him when they saw him, and they were like, oh, I can't believe he didn't get dressed. And here he did so many steps right, and they didn't notice those things. So again, it can be really demoralizing if we don't acknowledge progress. So again, that's going to be something really important to take with you. So progress, not perfection. The next one that comes up a lot in my private practice had been criticism. So whether it's parents criticizing kids or whether it's individuals criticizing themselves, the research tends to lend itself that it takes about 7 positive comments to neutralize 1 negative comment. And so somebody might say something, but I've had a number of clients who really beat themselves up. They keep on saying, oh, I'm not good at this and I can't do that. And oh, here I messed up again. I remember one time in one of my groups, I challenged people to say 7 positives every time they said a negative. And one guy had come in and he said he couldn't do it. He's like, Doc, I just couldn't do it. I said, okay, so how was that a win? Because he said he had won that week. He said, well, I stopped talking to myself because then I didn't have to come up with all the positives. So again, watch criticism. Criticism really does hurt. A lot of individuals are pretty sensitive to criticism. And so I know they can try your patience sometimes, but try to keep things positive. And if you're talking to yourself, keep that positive too. Another resource that was really helpful for a lot of folks was to find your tribe. I know when I wrote the book on social skills, one of my fellow presenters had said, well, you didn't really need to write a book. I could tell you how to have better social skills in 1 sentence. And it's like, well, how's that? He says, hang out with people who like you and understand you. And so it's going to be important to find those safe places because if you're always, trying to make sure you're not squirming or trying to make sure you're not blurting out things, always on your guard, it's sort of nice to have people who get it and aren't going to be offended. I know my father didn't go to any kind of support group. He wasn't diagnosed till he was like 50 or 60. I guess it was like 50. So I brought him to one of the ADA conferences, and he didn't want to go. He said, I can be pretty annoying. I don't want to hang out with a bunch of other annoying people. But anyhow, I got him to go, and he was never so happy as he was surrounded with all these people who struggled in a lot of the same ways he did. So again, whether it's like CHAD support groups, whether it's online groups, find some people who get it. find some people who get you. I know even as a psychologist, when I was raising Jared, I can't tell you how many people were critical. They're like, oh, you don't have to watch them that carefully. Oh, you're just hypervigilant. And it's like, no, you don't get it. You don't get it at all. In fact, Jared actually had escaped from a neurology office that the neurologist assured me I was just a hypervigilant parent until the nurses had to go like running down the hall to try to catch him. But again, somehow, some way, find some kind of support group for you so that you can sort of relax and be yourself and be with people who understand it, that you don't have to totally bring up to speed all the time. Also, one of the things I found a lot of people trying to do was always reinventing solutions. When they had a problem, they started as if things were at ground zero. Many people have been managing ADHD before our generation, and many people have come up with an awful lot of good ideas. So when you have an issue, my first suggestion would be check some of the available resources. Attitude Magazine has a wealth of articles and strategies. You can, go in their box and do a search. Chad also has some really nice resources, as does ADA. So again, start there. Sometimes you have to watch where your resources are coming from. But if you stick with a lot of the national organizations, that's generally a pretty safe place to look for information. So again, when you find something that you're stuck with, just realize there's tons of options available for you to at least get you started. And then there's even books and all sorts of stuff. So again, don't feel like you have to always be starting from ground zero. Fortunately, you don't. However, sometimes people do need to bring in some expert help. So again, if you've been working on something and it's not working well enough, you might need to do something different. And again, there's a number of professionals now with expertise in ADHD who are ready, willing, and available to help you. You might need a medical doctor. It might be time to look at medication, either starting or adjusting. You might need a psychiatrist because medical doctors are good, but sometimes there's some other issues involved with ADHD that might need some attention as well. Psychologist, wonderful at coming up with a lot of behavioral strategies in support and parenting help. Coaches, helping everybody become more effective and efficient and coming up with goals. Maybe you need an organizational consultant. One of the coaches I loved had said, if you're the one that created all your messes, you're probably not the best person to be fixing them by yourself. So again, bring in some help if you need a little bit of a boost. So don't spend a lot of time spinning your wheels. Sometimes it only takes a couple meetings and it can get you back on track. I think a lot of people were surprised they didn't need 20 years of therapy to manage ADHD. Sometimes a couple sessions were enough to give them the kick in the pants they needed. Also, this one I've come up with an awful lot too. People might be relying on their family doctor, or they might have a psychologist that they've been working with for 5 years. But if you're not getting progress in the direction that you want, it may be time to change. Because again, on paper, I have a Ph.D. just like a number of other psychologists have a Ph.D. I know a lot about ADHD. If somebody was going to be coming to me with multiple personality disorders, I wouldn't have much of a clue. I mean, I read about it in school. I learned the basics, but I wouldn't be real good at helping them with that. And the same's true in our field. Different professionals really specialize in attention deficit disorder. So make sure the person you have is really good at this, especially when it comes to medication and medication management and coaching even. A lot of people get regular organizational coaches and they'll give you strategies like, put everything in a file, label it with your little label maker and put it away in a drawer, alphabetize it. And again, that works well for a lot of people. But with ADHD, an organizational consultant might say, are you a piler or a filer? And if they say they're a piler, they might come up with ways to help you manage your piles better. So again, they would sort of get the way the brain's wired. which would be way more helpful for you. So again, make sure you have somebody with a lot of experience in ADHD, and also somebody might be a not quite a good fit. So that's going to be important to watch for too. Optimize medication. I can't tell you how many people have said, I tried meds. One time I tried one dose and it didn't work. So yeah, that's done. Or I tried 2 or 3 meds and it's not working, we're done. Or somebody said, yes, I'm on meds and it's helped some. But the biggest problem I find is that a lot of people don't take the time to work on, we call it titrating the medication, having the medication go up and see what happens, possibly trying a different medication. To me, it's almost like eyeglasses, is that when you do the first lens, it's like, is this better? And you're like, yeah, that's pretty good. And then if you would stop, you wouldn't know that there was more behind that. I know the first time I had an eye exam, I didn't know that buildings actually had writing on them. I thought they were just designs. But as they kept on adding another lens and another lens, all of a sudden, don't know what's switching. All of the different letters started showing up. I'm going to next go into some of the specific strategies and structures and supports that a number of individuals have found helpful over the years. So the first question is, are you time challenged, or you or your child? Many people are. So time is usually the first things we always have to work on some. One of the top tips has been to redefine what on time means. Many individuals tend to aim for the exact starting time of something. And then if they miss the mark, they're late. So if you had to be at a dinner reservation at 6, they aim for 6. And so then if there's not a parking space, they're driving around looking for parking and they don't get there till say 7, to like 15 after, and then they gave their reservation away, and all of a sudden, things just started going downhill. Or if there's a traffic jam, again, it doesn't take much to make you late if you always aim for the exact starting time. So one of the things I've done is encourage folks to set your start time 8.5 to 10 minutes early. I found if I just said 10 minutes, most people ignored 10 minutes. I don't know why, but somehow if you make it an odd time, that tends to help. So make it, 8.5 minutes of, or something like that, and you're likely to be successful. At least that gives you a cushion. One of the next errors I see an awful lot would be people not guessing right. So again, if I had to say a statement, it would be folks with ADHD are usually terrible guessers. If they'll say it takes them 10 minutes to take a shower, when I actually have them time themselves, they'll go, oh, it really took me 15 or 20. Or if I ask how long it takes them to go through their morning routine, they'll take me 15 minutes. And then when they time themselves, they find it really takes them 30. And then they said that, oh, I wonder if that's why I'm always 15 minutes late. So again, if you're going to be building a plan, find out how long things really take. So that's important. Another strategy that's helped a lot of people over the years is called backward planning. And that's where you start with what you want to end up with, and then you sort of work backwards from there. So that, like, say you wanted to be out the door at a certain time. Well, then you say, well, what do we need to do before we're out the door? And then just plan backwards, again, with accurate information, until you get your actual start time. So that's going to be really, really important. I know one of the gals on the ADA board, Donna, did this with her Thanksgiving dinner, and she was thrilled. She actually had her whole time frame written out for when she had to start with what. So, even things like if you have to put a turkey in the oven for 3 hours, knowing then that you need to preheat the oven at a certain time, and then when you need to put it in. A lot of these logistical pieces, again, with ADHD, the prefrontal cortex has some challenges. So this kind of organized, detailed, linear timing might not be a strength. So again, by putting in some of these systems, you can help corral your brain into helping you to be successful. Another piece I think a lot of individuals over the years haven't really paid attention to was that there actually is a social cost in being late. It's not just that you're late, it also impacts the activity itself. People might be waiting for you to eat, or people might be waiting for you to play a game, or your kids to get started, or people might be waiting for you to pick them up, or kids might be waiting, to try to do an activity. Oftentimes what goes on in people's heads would be they don't care enough, or they don't value my time. Therefore, they just did whatever it was they wanted to do. And relationships really can suffer. So if there would be one area to really pay attention to, it would be working on being on time for things. And again, starting with early on time so that you actually get there on time. Planning ahead is really important. And I know that's probably like the worst thing people with ADHD want to hear. But the more you plan ahead, the less you're at the whim of things that are happening. So one of the sayings I saw that was cute, a lot of my clients liked, was if it wasn't for the last minute, nothing would ever get done. And again, with ADHD, there is some truth in that, because if you have something to do and there's a deadline, then your body produces a lot of panic mode, which actually lights up your brain better, which actually helps you focus better. But again, we don't need constant panic mode. That's really stressful. So for instance, morning's coming. It comes every day, and there's different things that need to be done, whether you're getting ready for school, getting ready for work. So the idea would be, again, what all needs to happen in the morning to get out the door? Can food be made ahead of time? Can clothes be picked out ahead of time? Backpacks packed? What can be handled ahead of time to make getting out the door easier? And again, a lot of people have landing pads or launch pads. I think that one's coming up, where you put all your stuff. So, create a space where things can get dropped off, and then you can pick them up when you go. Cell phone, wallets, and keys are usually really good items to keep in your landing and launch pad. I had someone who liked Star Wars, so they created a Star Wars plate, and they had a little table, and that was the area where they dropped everything as soon as they came home. And then when they wanted to go out the door, they didn't have to do the going and looking for it. So again, it can be creative, it can be a basket, it can be a bag, but come up with some place to collect all the things that are coming and going. Also, to avoid lost items, this one's not on the slide, but they do have tiles that you can put on things. And if you lose them, you can push a button and then you can find things like remotes and keys. But again, if you have one space, that should be pretty helpful. All right, let's see. Clothing. Clothing causes a lot of stress for a lot of folks. First thing to pay attention to is if you have a child who says, they don't like the way something feels. Again, realize with ADHD, some people are very hypersensitive to touch. And different clothing actually does bother them. Things like seams in socks, tags on the back of things. So again, don't negate it if somebody's telling you something doesn't feel comfortable. You may have a sensitive child, or you may be a sensitive person. So again, the first thing to do would be make sure you get clothing that's comfortable. And they do now make socks without the little seams. So there's a lot of resources available now so that you can get comfortable clothing. It also helps to pick several outfits in advance so that you can choose. With ADHD, I've never had much success with somebody picking out their Monday outfit and their Tuesday outfit and going through it. But if they can pick out 3 or 4 outfits that they like and have them, and a lot of people like the clothing stackers. I think they're sold as sweater stackers in stores like Target, Walmart, things like that. And you can put your whole outfits in those stackers. And that way, when you're looking for something to wear, they can grab one of those. And then just keep on adding more outfits to the stackers to keep on giving you choices. There's also some wonderful new apps that can help. There's an app called Closet that actually you take pictures of your clothing and you can put it together and keep track of what you've worn and plan things out. Smart Closet does the same thing, as does Outfit Planner and Get Wardrobe. So again, you might want to check some of the resources that are available with apps for helping you to organize your clothing. And then also get rid of things that you don't like or that your child doesn't like. The less things you have to organize, the easier it is to organize. So if something just isn't comfortable, get rid of it. Give it to somebody who can use it and move on. Laundry tip, this is just a little tip, but it seemed to have helped a lot of people too, is there's something called color catchers. And you find them where there's laundry detergent, and you throw that in when you wash a load of clothes, and you don't need to sort by colors. It catches all the dye in the water. So sorting clothing tended to be a bone of contention for many of the folks I work with. So if we throw in a color catcher, things don't get ruined. Also, again, if you look at your goals and your criteria, with ADHD, it's not really fun to fold and put away things. And oftentimes if something's away, it's not seen. So it might be good to just keep some laundry baskets, clean clothes in one, dirty clothes in another. So again, that kind of system may work better. So if you've been fighting with somebody to fold all their clothes and put them away neatly in drawers, might want to just stick with the basics. The clean clothes need to be separated from dirty clothes, but maybe they don't have to be folded. Maybe they don't have to be in drawers. Maybe they can just be in baskets. So might help. Food. A lot of issues around food, especially for folks on medication. And so morning is one of the times where it's really good to get some breakfast in, folks. But it doesn't have to necessarily look like breakfast food. A lot of individuals would eat things like pizza or leftover dinner in the morning, and that's been really helpful. And also have some ready-to-go options. Keep some things that people can just grab and go. And then also the dreaded prep ahead, so see what you can do ahead of time so that you have food options available. Again, we live in a pretty interesting time. We have all sorts of gadgets and gizmos, crock pots, air fryers, Instapots. So again, it might be a nice time to get friendly with one of these items. Personally, I love my air fryer. I use it all the time. Does a great job of cooking things pretty quickly. It's like a big convection oven. Social skills. Probably the number one social skills, and if you leave with knowing nothing else, it would be to ask a question and ask a follow-up question when you're talking with someone. So many individuals never ask questions, so that if you actually are somebody who asks a question and then actually asks a follow-up question, and if you want, you can even ask a third follow-up question, people will really feel listened to and like you care about them, and it can really up your game in terms of social skills. Sorry about this. Physical activity is also one of the things that's really important for individuals with ADHD. Doctors John Rady and Dr. Daniel Amen write frequently on the topic, and they talk about how physical activity helps with the executive functioning parts of your brain, your overall brain health, also helps with sleep. So for individuals with ADHD, the research is increasingly showing that physical activity is one of the best things that can be done. I used to find that a lot of my clients did best right after they had say they went for a run. So I'd actually have them bring their non-preferred task with them to do as soon as they finished their activity, while their brain was sort of lit up and in high gear. Also, maybe things don't need to be done. Attention is expensive if you have ADHD. It's hard. So you might want to consider things like outsourcing, have somebody else do something. I mean, if you absolutely hate laundry more than life itself, there are places, laundromats, that'll do your laundry for you. So that might be worth it. You might want to barter services. Maybe somebody doesn't mind doing laundry and you like to cook or you like to drive. Again, you can trade things. Blocking out noise. A lot of individuals with ADHD are very noise sensitive. Perhaps use noise cancellation headsets, or I've had people use the rifle range Glock kind of headgear. There's also some nice noise cancellation apps, again, that can help with blocking that out. There's also technology that can help social media distractions. There's an app called Freedom that can go on the computer or cell phone that actually lets you block out different kind of social media apps for different periods of time. There's different kinds of focus music now. Neurologists have been studying brainwaves. There's things on YouTube that you can play that are supposed to help you focus. There's also an app called Focus at Will that, again, was actually designed by some neurologists to help your brain function. It's also important to realize that every individual with ADHD is unique. So just because you have ADHD doesn't mean that your ADHD is going to look like somebody else's. And also, if your kid has ADHD, that doesn't mean they're going to look like somebody else. Strategies, again, it's not a one-size-fits-all. Different strategies work for different folks. So you might have to find out what's helpful for you. Now, I guess we're into the question part.
Okay. Michele, thank you. The great tips there. And listeners, I want you to post, please, what is the biggest daily impediment to you, for you or your child or your household that with ADHD that you'd love to have a suggestion about? And if you've got a great tip, something that really works for you, for your child, for your household, post it. We'll share it with the group. So let's go to some questions. Let me just see something here. Sorry. Making a plan. I mean, Michele, you suggested that making a plan was a good idea. And of course, that sounds logical. Someone here with ADHD says, I think very honestly, I oftentimes make a plan, but I find it really hard to stick to it, or I find myself wandering off course. Do you have any suggestions for staying on plan? This would probably be a plan for getting out the door on time, or getting something, okay. Time management sort of question.
All right. So if you have a plan, and again, it's very, very, very common for people with ADHD to get off task. So it's important to break the plan down into small steps and then maybe use a timer to try to keep you on task. So if you have, say, 5 tasks that have to get done, maybe set a timer for every 5 minutes, for you to check and see, are you where you're supposed to be? I had one client that was trying to get out the door. And so what he found was he actually pointed to the door and would say out loud, door, 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 just to block out any competing noises so that he really would get out the door and not pay attention to the dog that he wanted to pet or the flower pot to water and stuff like that. But again, small steps, and then have some kind of markers in place to keep you on track. There's actually an app in the morning that you have to scan different items within a certain time period, or else your phone will make a noise. So it has things like you can take a picture of like your toothbrush, you can take a picture of the coffee pot, whatever. So you set it up, and then you set how much time you think it's going to take for you to do things. And then you have to actually take a picture of it before it goes off to make it turn off. So again, technology is pretty interesting, but a lot of people, when they set a plan, they have like a huge item, like I'm going to do my taxes. Well, doing your taxes is like a million different plans, so they might want to break it down to things like I'm going to make a copy of all my medical expenses, or, and make that just one step, or I'm just going to start collecting all my income receipts. So again, if you make plans small, then you wouldn't get as overwhelmed a lot of times.
Interesting, because, for example, one person here says, I lose steam in the middle of paying bills or answering emails. How do I keep pushing myself? And I'm guessing that what you would say is, don't try to push yourself. Just set an amount of time that you're going to pay bills and then stop. Is that right? Or would you try to come up with a way to continue past attention?
If your brain is sort of done, it's sort of done. So one of the things would be, how do you get to reactivate your brain? There's some neat brain gym kind of exercises, and it's called Brain Gym. And on YouTube, there's a guy in red shorts that does a pretty nice job on it. I forget what it's called. But again, with Brain Gym, you actually cross your median. Like you touch your left ear with your right arm, or you do your right elbow to your left knee. And what they find is that if you do some of these brain gym kind of exercises, it lights your brain back up, and then you can go and do something again. But yeah, you might want to set a timer for, I'm going to work on task for this long. And then after you're done, you could set a timer for you to get up and do something different. Again, individuals with ADHD get bored pretty frequently. And it would be pretty unreasonable to think you're going to sit still for an hour and focus, or even 2 hours and focus on something. So breaks are good, but you don't want to do something that doesn't get you back on track.
Right.
So small steps, frequent breaks, and sometimes even bribing yourself with food. If you like food, you can give yourself special crackers or something to help keep you on. Give yourself stars, stickers. There's some really nice reward apps, again, on the computer or on your phone. And you can reward yourself for different steps that you get done.
Okay, that's great. Along the same lines of sort of time and how much time you spend on a task, if Chrissy says, I have a really hard time knowing when I'm spending too much time on a task at work. Like, how much time should I be spending? And this is a little bit like, should I continue forcing myself to do X, or should I stop? I mean, sort of that issue of managing time.
I guess I'm also hearing possibly is something like, is your standard right? Like some people will do like 95% of it, and then they're just so worried about perfectionism, they just keep sort of ruminating on something. Again, with ADHD, it's generally going to take you, again, if you're not using medication to manage it, it's generally going to take you about 3 times as long to do something. So if somebody says something's going to take 20 minutes, it wouldn't be uncommon for it to take you an hour. So again, that would be on the outside parameter. So that would be important to look at is, are you really focused on it? Is it being done to the standard it needs to be done? So like if you're making cookies, it doesn't matter if they're all exactly the same shape. So, it would be important to find out what's snagging you, or is it really just taking longer? And again, some people take medication in the morning and it's worn off later on. And so things might take them longer to do when they aren't covered with their medication. So that would be an important thing, is what's getting in your way from doing it within whatever seems to be a reasonable time period.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. What is a reasonable time period? Right. Okay. Here's a big one. Paper clutter. How do I tackle all those piles of paper that are already out of control? And someone else just said clutter, the word paper clutter. So
papers are an interesting thing to handle. Many individuals struggle with paper clutter everywhere. I know one gal, one of the coaches, would never have paper. It was like paper was like the bane of her existence. So as soon as she got a piece of paper, she scanned it and put it in the computer so she wouldn't lose it. So again, making backup copies of things on your cell phone, taking a picture of it so that you have something that's important is good. But if you're at the point where you really need to get organized, and you're really drowning in piles of paper, I think we go back to, you may not be the best one to dig yourself out of that pile. So you might want to find an organized friend, somebody who doesn't struggle in that area, and maybe they could sit with you for a bit. Or you might want to hire an organized, high school kid to work with you while you sort of figure out what to do, because you really can't just pick up most of the piles of paper and throw them away, because there might be 80 pieces of junk and 5 priceless items in there. So again, it's not as simple as let's just throw it away and start fresh. So you probably do need to take a look at it. But again, hiring somebody to help, and you probably don't need a super duper expensive person if you're going through stuff. Again, somebody who's organized, whether it be a high school kid or a college kid or a friend, might just do the trick. Many individuals find that they do better for a dig out to do it all in one batch, big batches. Because if you just do the 5-minute chunks or 10-minute chunks, I don't think you're going to feel good enough. So you might want to start with an organizing mountain kind of thing. But you will be surprised how much a professional organizer really can help you with things, in terms of going through papers. I know I actually hired people to, take care of my papers a lot of times because I didn't like to do it.
Yeah.
And I was surprised that they actually could do a pretty good job. They would put a pile of the things that they thought were trash, not throw them away, but give them to me to look through. They would put a pile of things that they thought needed to get filed or scanned or whatever. And then they had their unknowns that, only I could do. But again, most papers either need to be filed, decided, thrown away. So that's usually what these all kind of things are. So if it's tax records, they might need to be kept for a certain period of time. If it's for something that you're invited to, in fact, when you start digging down your piles, it's actually helpful too to flip them upside down. So get some of your big piles and flip them upside down because the stuff on the bottom has probably already happened. So it's probably passed. So you can go through a lot of the bottom papers pretty quickly. But again, also the other strategy could be chunking it. Set a timer for 20 minutes and just make a commitment that 20 minutes a day or 15 minutes a day, you're going to tackle something and start in one particular place and, keep working through it. But I think it's almost like a Amish barn raising. If you had a couple people in there helping you to dig out, that might help. And you might want to look at technology for scanning. I mean, hotels don't have papers anymore and they keep track of all sorts of stuff. So, it can be done to go digital.
That's great. Yeah. I'm going to move to a question about children from parents. And you will not be surprised to know that there are numerous people asking about your best advice for homework time. Everything from getting started to not forgetting the homework to the whole question of homework.
Homework, yes.
Yeah.
That has come up a time or two over the years.
Really.
Really. So some of the ideas would be, what is your kid's best time for doing homework? Because when they first come home from school, some kids are just spent and they really need time to go outside and play, run around, or do something else other than sitting and getting homework done. So are they better first thing? Because some kids actually are better to get it done, out of the way, finished, so they don't have to see it, and then they're free. So that's, again, where it's an individual kind of thing. The second one would be, again, if they're covered with medication, many of the all-day meds tend to run out right around dinner time, if not earlier. So if they benefit from medication, you may want to help them get their homework done while they're still covered and benefiting from medication. We also can do the homework maybe after physical running around because, again, your brain could be more lit up at that time. So they might be more effective at getting that done. So you sort of have to pick your time. And again, here's where chunking might also be helpful. Have them work for a period of time, and then take a break, and then go back. And again, if they have a timer set, things like time timer can be helpful too for littler kids because that's actually a visual timer that shows them how much time is left. That could be helpful. Body doubles sometimes are helpful too, where you have somebody sitting with them while they do it. Even if you're in the kitchen doing something else and they're there, just that accountability of having somebody physically present can work. And I actually have had people keep stuffed animals as a body double or family pets as body doubles, and that can help. Crossing things off, maybe having a whiteboard with the different things on there. And then you could also have the kids guesstimate, how long do you think it's going to take you, say, to do your math homework? And some kids might say it's going to take me like a year. or it's going to take an hour and a half. And then time them and see, because a lot of it is dread. So, maybe it's not really going to take them an hour and they find out they really got it done in 10 minutes. So again, take a look at how realistic the time periods are. And it can be that the kids really are having too much homework. So they may, if you're actually watching your child and they're spending way more time than the school says they should spend on homework, that's when it's good to talk to the teacher and let them know that, hey, I know you said that this should only be taking them like 45 minutes. I'm watching my child and he's really spending this long, because sometimes teachers lose sight of how long things really can take. So sometimes they can do IEP accommodations, like give them like every other question to do instead of all of them, or draw a line and stop when they hit their time limit. So again, there's a multitude of things that can be done to help with homework.
Okay. One person here says the whining is killing us. 30 minutes of homework takes 2 hours because of the whining. So that's maybe a different issue. Less of an organizational,
Whining is, but again, that's sort of the self-talk. So part of that would be, what are they really telling themselves that they're whining that much? Because usually people whine when they dread something. So if they dread something, they have to be telling themselves something.
Right.
So sort of maybe dive into their self-talk. So underneath, I don't want to do it kind of thing, it's like, is this hard for you or is this easy for you? Is this likely to be successful? And what don't you like about this? Everybody doesn't like homework pretty much. But, what is it particularly that makes it this miserable? The other thing to watch out for would be intermittent reinforcement. Sometimes people every once in a while give in to the whining, which then perpetuates the whining. So they may want to watch, so if they whine and if they whine and if they whine, and then you finally break down and say, fine, go watch TV. What happens then is they learn that they just need to whine longer to get the same result next time. So behavioral psychology, we call that the intermittent reinforcement. And so you have to watch that. Are you giving in? But I would take a look at the self-help, the self-talk, and see what they're telling themselves. And also maybe making games. Can you finish this, in under 15 minutes? And let's see how fast you can do this. So things like that may help. Right.
But I think you're so right about the self-talk. And here's someone who said, yesterday my son said that his homework was going to take him 1 billion years. There are some questions here about something that's always sticky for people with ADHD, and that's getting started. One person says, how can I help my wife get started on tasks that she puts off? Other people say, how can I help my child get started? And it's not exactly the same thing, but there are many questions about getting up in the morning and getting out the door. So either one of those.
All right, so it sounds like we got two things. One is getting up and out the door, and then one is getting
morning
started.
Morning hour is hell is here frequently. Yes.
All right. So again, it's important to take a look at what goes on in the morning. There are some really creative alarm clocks now. There's actually an alarm clock that jumps off of your counter and runs, and you have to catch it. It actually moves. It rolls. So, there is some fun devices like that, but mornings usually start with the night before as well. What are they? Are they going to bed? Are they going to sleep? Are they getting enough rest? So part of it would be taking a look at the night. There's also now a medication that you can take at night that's actually on board first thing in the morning. Some people, I know what we used to do is we woke Jared up early in the morning, like around 5 o'clock, to give him some medication to get him started by 7, and we hoped he went back to sleep, which he never did. But again, so part of the thing is in the mornings, most people don't have medication on board, which makes mornings harder. So again, that might be something to discuss with your physician. And if you're not waking up ready to go, we might want to look at sleep. And again, there's a ton written about ADHD and sleep. And then beyond that, there's like lots of strategies. So this might be one where if they've tried a lot of the common things, they might want to work with a professional a little bit, because again, there's a lot of things that could be tweaked for getting out the door.
Right.
So that's just a glimmer of that one. Getting started on activities. One of the things that tends to help with that may be just setting up for the activity as a goal. That say you have to cook dinner and you don't want to cook dinner or whatever. At least if you just have your first step, getting all this stuff out. And then you can sort of cross that one off the list. Or if it's homework, it would be just getting your backpack out, put your papers out, and then you can take a break. So once you get started, again, whose law is it that, the hardest action is from still to moving? So once you get that one done, that can help. Or it might be a place where maybe you do the first couple problems with your kid for homework. Or whatever it is that the person's dreaded, you might want to do the body double to just get them started with it. And then if they can keep going, that can help. But part of it also is going to be to make the task manageable. Because again, a lot of times if we feel a task is unmanageable, then we're going to procrastinate. And there's a lot of tips on procrastination, but those would be a couple to get started with.
Okay, that's great. I want to go to social skills. I loved your suggestion about ask a question and then ask a follow-up question. Someone missed that description, so maybe you could say it again and then add any other tips you might have for better social skills.
Okay, in this world, and again, this would be for individuals even without ADHD, I am shocked and appalled at how many people talk at people, sort of a monologue instead of a dialogue. And if you eavesdrop on different people talking in public settings, you'd be shocked at how many times somebody doesn't ask the other person a question. I was once at an airport and this guy started talking and he said like over 60 things and never asked me one question the whole time. Or the other thing that people will do is they'll ask a question, like sort of like a police detective. And then when the person says something, they just talk about themselves. So say, Susan, I asked you, have you taken any vacations lately? And you say, yeah, actually I did. I was up in the mountains. And I said, I like drinking mountain coffee. I had some mountain coffee the other day, and then if I go off, we don't have much of a relationship going on. But if I said, where did you go in the mountains? What did you do? Ideally, I used to try to get people to do 2 follow-up questions. And that seemed to be hard for people, but very few people ask questions. And so if you're somebody who is interested in someone and actually ask them a question, ask them a follow-up, which usually starts to build the conversation, that has you legions ahead of a lot of people. I know when I was working with Jared when he was littler, trying to teach him social skills, he would often forget to ask anybody anything. He would just say what he wants to say because he's afraid he's going to forget it. And so what we found helpful for him was he would ask people questions first to get it out of the way so then he could talk. So again, it's better if it goes back and forth. But at a minimum, if you ask a question and ask a question about what they just said, that's going to go a long way to showing that you really are listening to what somebody else is saying.
That's great. That's a really good tip. I think all of us could do better at listening and asking questions. And I think what you said is critical, is making the other person feel understood is what you're doing.
It says, I'm interested in you. I'm interested in your life.
Right.
And very important stuff.
Leaving our house is hell. This is a person. And this person says, every time I leave, no matter how organized I am, I have to go back. I forget something. I have to go back and get it.
All right. So that sounds like somebody who might benefit from a checklist. And actually, if you had like a printable checklist or a checklist on like some kind of laminated board, and because again, we tend to need to do the same things every day over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if there's 20 things that need to get done and she's always forgetting something, if you have that list of what those 20 things are and you check them off, I'm thinking that may help.
Yeah, that's good sense. Motivation. I know in the years of attitude, this comes up frequently, and I'm not surprised to see 4 or 5 questions here about motivation. I know I should be doing something, but I put it off. I don't want to do it. How do I lose motivation on a project, on housework, on various things that I know I have to do. And a similar question, or maybe it's not, is someone who says, I start lots of things, but I don't finish any of them. So I have lots of projects that are half done.
Okay, well, the starting and not finishing is a classic thing with ADHD. So one of the questions would be, must you be the one to finish it? Like, for instance, I had 2 people who came to see me once, and they were in the stock and financial planning business. And the one guy was awesome at calling up people and getting all excited and jumping on leads. But then he would forget to get back with them. And, they would never get anything closed. Well, I mean, he would get some stuff closed, but not that much. His partner, on the other hand, incredibly organized, incredibly detailed, and, she was about ready to kill him because of all the drop balls. And so then I asked him, I said, is he a better starter than you? And she's like, what do you mean? It's like, does he do better on the initial calls? She's like, yeah, but it never amounts to anything. And it's like, okay, so could you jump in where he loses interest and close him out? I said, because I'm thinking he's better at you on the front end, and I'm thinking you're better on the back end. So maybe he's not the one to do all the back end stuff. It's not that we couldn't get him to do it, but in some jobs, maybe if you're the good starter, the important thing is, is there somebody you can hand it off to? I know one place where some guy worked, they would work on a task until they got bored with it or stuck on it, and then they'd put it back on the board and, with what the next step is, and then they would grab another task. So sometimes you don't have to be the one to finish them, but if you do have to be the one to finish them, again, you have to look at your self-talk. What are you saying about the things that you have to finish? What are you telling yourself? Because again, if you're telling yourself it's going to take 1 billion years, of course you're going to lose interest. And again, we're back to small steps, frequent rewards, breaks, brain gym, kind of lighting up your brain, listening to music. Music can really help activate your brain again. So again, those would be some general ones to get started with. And again, that might be one that over time, if that tends to really be a sticking point for you, a couple sessions with a psychologist or a coach might be really beneficial, to figure out exactly what's getting in your way. Because again, There's some generalities and then there's some specifics.
Michele, I think your positivity and your optimism about conquering things that seem overwhelming is really wonderful to listen to. I think this has been a really helpful presentation. And I know everyone listening in feels the same way because they're posting comments to that effect. So I want to thank you for sharing 30 years of great experience with our audience today. And listeners, I want to tell you about upcoming webinars. Tuesday, October 29. This is an important one. Cognitive behavior therapy and dialectical behavior therapy are strategies that are known to help reduce ADHD symptoms and self-talk, just the kinds of things that Michele's been talking about. That's next Tuesday at 1 p.m. And Tuesday, November 5th, my partner has ADHD, strategies for living happily after a diagnosis with ADHD with a partner. So please be sure to check back for those. And as you know, all of our webinars are available on our website. You can listen to them on replay. You can share them with your friends or your family, whatever. Attitude/webinars. And finally, we have podcasts, lots and lots of podcasts. We've had over 5 million downloads of our podcasts. They're available on iTunes and Stitcher, as well as on the Attitude website. So thanks, everybody, and we hope to see you again soon. And Michele, thank you so much for your time today. Really great.
All right. Thanks for having me, Susan.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
For more Attitude podcasts and information on living well with attention deficit, visit attitudemag.com. That's ADDITUDEMAG.com. That's ADDITUDEMAG.com. That's ADDITUDEMAG.com.